This is the historic Farnham Little Pond situated on Priory Lane off the A287 just outside the village of Millbridge, south of Farnham in Surrey. One of Farnham Angling Society's most picturesque venues, it's a reed fringe water of around 30 acres in size with 21 swims, most of which are flanked by reed beds with shallow margins gently sloping off into deeper water. Some of the swims are tight narrow walkways out into the lake, with others affording a wide view of the water. Farnham Little Pond has a mainly silty and sandy bottom with a maximum depth of around 6 feet at its deepest point to mere inches in the margins, with an average depth of around 4 feet. Originally created in the 13th century to supply fish to the Bishop of Winchester and his court whilst visiting Farnham Castle, today the pond and surrounding area is a sanctuary for wildlife and an area of outstanding natural beauty. Farnham Little Pond is a dammed estate lake which is known to contain around 70 carp. A handful of the original leany carp still remain from the 1954 stocking, with the largest of these, known as the long one, around the £40 mark at the right time of year, with the others in the £20 to £30 bracket. These fish are amongst the oldest and most prestigious history fish in the country, and as with all Farnham Angling Society fisheries, fish care and rig safety must be absolutely paramount when targeting and ensuring the safe landing of these fish. Alongside these fish you've got a backup stock of carp from 2 more recent stockings, of which 2 of the largest Burt and Bradstock fish hover around the upper £30 to £40 mark at the right time of year, with the rest of the fish being smaller specimens coming from the most recent stocking of Thames Water Authority carp, which are mainly linears and fully scaled fish, with several smaller carp present which have resulted from the successful spawning of these fish. In addition to the carp, there's rudd to over £3 8 ounce, although these are rarely captured, and tench into double figures, as well as some great perch to over £3 with many smaller fish present, plus some large roach up to £2 plus, and pike to £29 plus as well. Farnham Little Pond is shared with many dog walkers and members of the general public who also wish to enjoy the water and surrounding areas, and the fishery can become extremely busy during weekends and holiday periods, especially during the summer months, so it's advised to fish nights, early mornings and evening sessions, and to place rods and tackle to the sides of swims to avoid conflict with other users of the area. Umbrellas and storm sides may be used all season, with bivvies permitted from the 1st of October until the end of the season. And also please be aware that no bait boats are allowed on this fishery either. Turning off the A287 and coming down Priory Lane, you'll find the designated Farnham Angling Society car park next to the Warden's Cottage on the right hand side. Please ensure that the gate is locked and secure upon your entrance and departure. Coming out of the gate, turning left at the driveway to the Warden's Cottage, you'll find a footpath on the right hand side which will bring you out on the northern bank of the fishery. Carrying on along the footpath, you'll see the dam wall in front of you, parts of which date back to the 12th century. You can fish off this dam wall, but please make sure not to obstruct the footpath. Making your way round the pond, you'll come to the swim by the dam. Looking out from this one, you've got the dam wall off to your right there, with very shallow water close to it, so we'll cast off to the left into the deeper channel around halfway, as always in with a shout. Moving up the west bank of the fishery, the next swim you'll come to is number 2, the Green Door. Again quite shallow at around 2 feet close in, but you'll pick up deeper water extending off the reed beds either side of the swim, with the deeper silty stream bed featuring around halfway out down to a depth of around 5 feet. This swim has been closed for fishing recently, but necessary reed management work by Farnham Angling Society in conjunction with the National Trust in this swim and many others has ensured that they are now fishable for all. Carrying on up the footpath and looking right, you'll arrive at swim number 3, the Oak Swim. Looking out from this one, you'll pick up the old stream bed around halfway out, but a bait placed on the near side edge of this has been known to produce good results. This is followed by a good long length of undisturbed margin, at the end of which you'll find number 4, the Shingly Beach. This is situated on the corner as the lake bends round to the left. This is a swim that's extremely popular with our canine friends, summer and winter. So as with many of the more open swims, please take care with tackle placement, especially in the summer months. Moving on, the next swim you'll come to is number 6, known as Long Reeds. This swim looks out to the main body of the lake with a couple of platforms to the left of the swim. These are put in to provide nesting opportunities for the terns which are known to inhabit the water, so please be advised not to fish too close to them, as the carp in the water do know where they are and will head for them once hooked. As with most swims on the little pond, waders must be on hand at all times to ensure the safe landing of your quarry in a sufficient depth of water. It's also a good idea to have your landing net ready out in the water too, to avoid any problems. Moving along that bank, you'll come to the apple tree swim, which again is quite difficult to fish due to the platforms which feature off to the right there, so the same advice applies to this swim as the previous one. To the left of this is a stalking swim, which really is a day only swim due to its snaggy nature, with the bird sanctuary up to your left and snags opposite. As you make your way round the water, you'll see the bird sanctuary off to your right there and to your left, none of which can be fished, but which provides an important habitat for many native and visiting birds, amphibians and insects which can be observed at all times of the year. Crossing over the bridge, coming onto the southeast bank of the fishery, the first swim you'll come to is number 8, the Perch, followed by number 9 and 10, Clydes and Steves, all three of which are situated amongst large banks of reeds which have been carefully managed over the early part of 2015 to open up more angling opportunities and to enable the safe playing and landing of your quarry. These are probably the furthest swims from the car park. All three of these swims face out to the main body of the lake, and the carp can sometimes be seen crashing there out in the middle, known as the void. Getting a take out there is a completely different matter. Up to the left of these swims you've got a good long area of undisturbed margin, at the end of which you'll come to number 11, the snake pit, which is quite marshy up to the left there, with long quiet sections of reed beds right round to the next swim, number 12, known as the tip, in the southwest corner of the lake. The tip affords a great view up the lake, especially in the early morning with the sun rising above the opposite bank. Coming round the corner onto the west bank of the fishery, next up is number 13, the Little Beach. Again flanked on either side with reed beds, this one's a favourite with the pike anglers in the winter months, with a dead bait fished off the reeds, a killer method. Moving along, the next one you'll come to is number 14, the beach area, which as the name implies is an extremely wide sandy swim looking straight out onto the widest area of the lake. Fish can quite often be observed crashing out in the void area, right out in the middle there, especially at night. The other end of this particular section is number 15, the mid-beach, which has a fenced off area to its left where the lake begins to narrow again. Location is key on this fishery, and more time spent in observing the water will result in a better chance of being on the fish. The next swim you'll come to is the Point Bush, number 16, again with the fenced off area to the right there. Very shallow close in, sloping off gently into slightly deeper water, just shy of the middle there, where you'll pick up the old stream bed running from left to right across the swim. At the other end of this section you'll arrive at number 17, known as the Pines, which as with all the swims along this bank is mega busy with the general public, so please pick your fishing times wisely and ensure your setup is placed off to one side to avoid any problems with other pond users. Further along you'll come to number 18, the Cottage Swim, with a continuation of the stream bed out in the middle there, where fish can often be seen bubbling in the silt. Next up, number 19, the Compound, which is in the fenced area next to the cafe, with the dam wall off to your left there. Again, a bait presented out in the middle on this side of the slope going into the old stream bed is always in with a shout, as is a bait just off to the left there, around 20-30 feet off the reeds, which is a good intersection point for carp patrolling the pond margins. And last but not least, the Bird Hut, number 20, which is only open to fish between 6 PM and 8 AM. This one features slightly deeper water immediately down to the right due to a channel which was created many years ago to enable boats to come in and out of this section. Please make a special note that a night ticket system operates on this water from the 16th of June to 31st of October each year. You can't fish on this water between these dates unless you've booked your night ticket in advance.
Here we are, Winchfield Court Farm. It's off the B3016, odium to Hartley Whitney Road. It's about half an acre in total, long sausage, 2 islands in the middle. First island is fairly small, the other one is twice the size. Consists of 14 swims. It's an underarm chuck water, there's no reason to cast too far here. The swims that give you access to every part of the lake. The deepest part of the lake is probably the end that you approach it at. There's an 8-foot hole in the middle of it. Average depth is 4 to 6 foot, but it was dug like an ornamental garden pond. There are planting shelves around all the edges and around the islands. At the right time of year can be up to 2 foot deep, but due to water levels you can be fishing in a foot of water to the ledges. Gravelly margins, wherever it's a planting shelf, it drops away fairly quickly down to the sort of 5, 6 foot, and it gets pretty silty out there. There is an awful lot of Canadian pondweed. There's certainly 30 to 40 carp in here, the majority of which are original old koi from a garden pond. And the koi will run up to sort of 38, 39 pound right time of year, spawning time obviously a bit bigger. There are a few old English mirrors in here. It's a carp water really, but there are a few other species that might be worth a dabble if you fancy a day out in the countryside. When you get in the car park, it is a little bit tight for space, so please park considerately in there. Upon leaving, getting out your car, you walk through a field gate with a latch on it. Please make sure you shut the gates behind you, because at certain times of the year there is a lot of farm stock kept on the grounds, and we need to keep them retained in the areas that they're supposed to be retained in. This is Peg 1, one of the more popular swims because it's in the corner next to the no fishing area. It's 8 foot of water out in the middle in front of you. However, you will have to fish through the lilies and Canadian pondweed and whatever. But margin's very good. This time of year, as we're looking at it now, it's probably 2 foot of water over the top of the planting shelves, and the fish do patrol it. However, they ain't silly on here. They've been in here a good number of years. They know exactly where to hide. So by no means is it an easy water. Here we are in Peg 2. Again, it's the same amount of water that Peg 1's got. Deep hole in front of you, gravelly margin right in your feet. The only feature of this one really is the water outlet to your right. So that is a very untapped margin. Nobody seems to fish it, but believe me, the fish are under there. So this is Peg 3, and it's just around the corner from the outlet, so fishing to the left near the outlet is not a very stupid thing to do. Again, you've got 8 foot of water out in front of you. The lake is only half an acre, so you are fishing fairly close to other people, so pick your spots, but don't be unreasonable, let other people fish. This is Peg 4, which backs onto the Sanctuary Island. It's been nicknamed because of the respect of the farmer who dug it all. Again, there's a planting shelf close under your feet and close on the island that runs out sort of 2-3 foot and then drops off fairly quickly to 6 foot of water. Silverfish probably run through here and sit in amongst the pads, so worth a dabble with a pole or float rod. Peg 5, again similar scenario to Peg 4, but you are fishing to the corner of the Sanctuary Island and the fish will hang out on that corner. Similar sort of depth, 6 foot channels, 2-3 foot planting margins around both sides. It's well worth putting one on the drop off down the edge of the Sanctuary Island because it is a very popular patrolling route and feeding spot for the fish. So this is Peg 6. Technically you've got the water between the islands, only to halfway because there is another swim opposite the same gap. Again, 7 foot of water between the islands, up to sort of 6 foot at the bottom of the planting shelf that's under your feet. Good features on here, both corners of the islands, and round to the right hand side where the water comes into the lake. And not quite so weedy in this swim for whatever reason, we don't really understand that, but a very good swim, very productive swim. Peg 7. In this swim you've got the corner of the second island. Similar features to all the others, the planting shelf both sides, very gravelly, deep channel through the middle. You've got the feeder stream to the left of your swim. The Canadian pondweed gets a bit heavier at this end of the lake for whatever reason, so maybe a bit of raking might trade profits. This is Peg 8, very close to Peg 7. You're fishing to the back of the second island. Similar features again, shallow margins, deep valley between the two of them, very silky in the valley and very weedy. Because it's such a small intimate pond, the quieter and more delicate you are with everything. don't go banging your pegs in right next to the lake, because they'll be up the other end of the lake. They are very, very clever, very wise fishing in. So stealthy tactics. Stalking, taking them off the top. All produced very, very well. You don't have to turn up for a 3-day session. Having said that, you're not going to catch a fish every time you turn up for 2 hours, but they will respond to stealthy tactics. Here we are on peg 9 towards the southeast corner of the lake, against the back of the second island. An extremely productive peg, but off the margins to the island because of the amount of vegetation that overgrows it, and there's a good number of snags along the island's edge. So get your bait in tight, but not right in tight, because it is quite snaggy along there. This is peg 10. Because of the narrowness of the lake this end, there are 3 swims around this corner. You've got to be a bit mindful of where other people are going to be fishing. But obviously the corner of the island is a very good feature here. They patrol it. They sit there like moored up like boats in the dockyard. You can see them in the right conditions, just sitting there. This is peg 11. Again, the obvious feature is the corner of the island in front here. I have caught a good number of fish from the deeper margin that's right underneath your rod tip, in amongst the ornamental lilies that are here. You're looking at 6 foot of water with a fair bit of silt at the bottom, but a popped up rig is extremely productive. For whatever reason, the fish seem to congregate at this end of the lake at certain times of the day. You'd have to decide when you're here what time is the feeding time, but it's the usual early morning, late evening. Because it's the longest walk from the car park, there's not so many people fish this end, and the fish know it. They feel safer. This is peg 12, north-east corner of the lake. A very, very productive swim. Again, island is a feature, close in margins. The king pads are obvious feature to the right-hand side of your swim, going up the channel to the back of the island. This is peg 13, which is on the northern bank, facing the back of the biggest of the island. Very narrow here, but you've still got the planting shelf off the island and off your bank under your feet, with 5-6 foot water channel between the two of them. Will be very productive, and usually is, because of the nature of the plant life here, the big pads, and that you can see the fish coming in and out like the submarines. This is peg 14, again between the two islands. Usual features, planting shelves around the bank under you on both islands. It is a very strong fish holding area, the middle of the lake between the two islands. They travel through here an awful lot, obviously the figure of 8 pattern or whatever they do patrolling route. Another good feature, because this is the last swim on this bank to the no fishing area, the king pads on your right hand side produce an awful lot of fish, fishing close into the island on the shelf, just at the bottom of the shelf. One word of warning here, there is a bridge across to the first island that you see as you approach the lake. In no way are you allowed on the bridge on the island, the reason being that the island is a sanctuary for the man who actually dug the lake out, and his wife keeps at the bridge and the island as a sanctuary. Please come here and enjoy it. You're in the middle of nowhere on a beautiful day like this, on a solstice day. What could you want more? Lodge is a fishery that's owned by the Forestry Commission. The club's had a lease on it for well over 40 years. It's a lovely little pond, set near Birdworld off the 325 in Farnham. It's a bit of a tortuous track, but once you know how to get down the track, you'll be on 2 lock gates, so everything's secure. Carp are minimal size, but enough for 21 swims that are on the lake. The lake is approximately 3 acres. It's a long sausage. Deepest end is the dam end, which is the furthest walk from the car park. It's probably 4 foot 6-ish. Runs up to the shallow end where there's 18 inches of water, and it's a very, very silty bottom. There are a few hard clay areas and there are a few gravel areas. There are a good number of 20s, but the predominant carp size is 10 to 14 pound. Tension here will run sort of 5-6 pounds. There isn't a great deal of tension here, but they're usually good quality ones. There's plenty of bream, there's good edge pike, loads of silverfish, roach, perch. But yeah, there is a good number of quality fish in it. You can come with confidence catching anything really. It's in the old terms, it's a runs water. It's probably the best stocked quantity of stock per acre that Farnham owns. So it's definitely the best lake to learn fishing on and progress onto the harder lakes once you've had a few years experience on these. As you can see in the front here, there's 2 paths. The left-hand path takes you down to the east side of the lake. If you want to fish the west bank, you're better off staying on the right-hand path, the higher path. Follow it down across the dam and down the west side of the lake. This is Peg 11, otherwise known as the Shallows at Lodge. It commands the largest amount of water on its own because of the way the lake's set up and the swims are set up. The shallowest end of the lake runs from 2 foot to your right to 18 inches in the far end. Very overgrown both sides by vegetation. This end of the lake, you can walk around it, but you need wellies on because it's mostly sphagnum moss bog area, and the Forestry Commission like to keep it as a sanctuary for bird habitat. Here we are, it's peg 10. It's always been known as a disabled peg. Only Farnham now is saying that we make all swims disabled friendly rather than a nominated peg. Still looking at 2 foot of water, very soft silt in front here. By the nature of the pond, it's a long sausage. Everybody wants to cast to the middle. Please do not ignore the margins here. We did a silt survey a few years ago. Mike Barrett in the club done it for the Forestry Commission. And we found that there's a hump in the middle of the lake. Okay, it's still silt, but the deepest part of the lake is in the margins. As you can see from the conditions, this is always a wet swim. The land behind us naturally drains through this swim, but it is a very good swim. It's classed as a double, but it can be a bit tight. Generally in front of you, you've got 2 foot 6 to your right, 2 foot 3 to your left, but a brilliant swim for the overhanging tree to the left of the swim. Always produces fish. Number 7 and number 8, they're both shut through the day through to the lease agreement with the Forestry Commission. They're shut from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening. You can night fish them, but the Forestry Commission are a bit stipulated that you can't be in there at 8 o'clock because they want it for public access, feeding the ducks and whatever. Still produce a lot of fish at night because they don't get any pressure through the day. Nobody fishes them, you can't fish them, so well worth a try in an evening session. This is peg 6. Again, we're looking at 2 foot 6 of water, loads of soft silt, hump in the middle, deeper in the edges. This is peg 4. Skip saying anything about peg 5 because basically it's the same as 6, other than the fact that water does start to get a little bit deeper to the right hand side of peg 4. You're looking at probably 3 foot in the margins, 2 foot 6 in the middle. We've moved along the bank now. This is peg 3. You can see the lake gets a little bit wider this end, considerably wider than the shallow end. You're now looking at 3 foot in the margins, 3 foot 6 to the right, to the inside, 3 foot out in the middle. This is peg 2. Again, a lot wider part of the lake. You're looking now at 3 foot 6, 4 foot of water in front here. Down the middle, you're looking at 3 foot 6 max. Number of features in this swim. If you can stretch your rods to halfway across the lake and to the right hand side of your water in this swim, there's a hard area of clay the size of a snooker table. Always produces good fish. Here we are in peg 1, nearest one to the dam on the car park side. Generally 4 foot of water in front here, deeper margins 4 foot 6. The deepest part of the lake is to the right hand side of the swim. Underneath the snag you can get 5 foot 6 of water in the hole if you can get prevent the bait in there. A good number of gravel features along the dam wall. Again, using a lead on the rod, you'll find them within sort of 3 foot of the dam face. This is obviously the dam at the northern end of the lake. There used to be swims along here, but no longer, so you're not allowed to fish this section anymore. This is called the Oaks. It's peg 21 on the lake, nearest one on the western bank to the dam. Again, 4'6" of water along the dam, 3 foot in front of you straight off the edge. It shallows up quite quickly in this corner because the main outlet from the lake is to your left in the corner. Moving along the bank, we're now in peg 20. Similar scenario, nice wide bit of water, deeper in the margins, probably 3'6" under your feet, up to 3 foot out in the middle. And again, this swim is opposite peg 2, which if you go to the left-hand side of your water, out towards the middle or in the middle, you will catch the edge of what we call the snooker table, hard bit of clay, always a good feeding spot. This is peg 19, peg 18, peg 17, very close together, all very similar, 3 foot water under your feet, up to sort of 2'6" out in the middle. Fish will come from anywhere. A good number of bream are caught from this section of the lake, and the general fish, roach and perch and whatever will come from here. Here we are in peg 16, western bank of Lodge. As you can see, the wind's picked up a little bit. Again, similar, very soft silt. 2'6", 2 foot, always good in the margins, especially left and right hand sides of the overhanging trees there. Peg 15, very close to peg 16, they usually treat as a pairs swim. Again, you're looking at 2 foot water, soft silt everywhere. This is peg 14 on the western bank again, 2 foot water in the middle, 2'6" under the rods. Lots of soft silt, but a very productive swim. Because it's opposite peg 7 and 8, which are shut through the day, you tend to get a few more fish thinking they're safe in here, but if you fish halfway, you will catch a lot of fish out of this swim. Here we are in peg 13. Again, it's one of those swims that people can't be bothered to make the effort to walk around, but a very productive swim. 2 foot of water underneath the rods, and again 2 foot out in the middle. There's no real depressions in this section of the lake here. However, there is a deeper hole to the left of the swim that will run into 3-4 foot, obviously because carp boys have been feeding in the margins and the fish have turned it up. But both margins in this particular swim are very, very productive. This is peg 12, or with a long walk, because it is the longest walk from the car park. Again, fairly shallow water in front of us, 18 inches to the right, 2 foot to the left, 2'6" in the margins. Very productive tree to the left, fishing tight in. But this particular corner, for some reason, the fish love it in this corner. Beautiful lake, isn't it?
We have 42 pegs on this venue, and this morning we're here having a typical Farnham match where we've got about 25 competitors. So we're using basically the whole lake from peg 2 starting right the way around to 33 on the other bank. Very, very varied here. We've got some very shallow areas up the end of the bank where the water actually comes into the lake. The early pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, very shallow, probably only got 3.5 to 4 foot water maximum. And then increasingly it gets deeper as it gets towards the dam. So once you get into pegs 7, 8 and 9, you're back up to about 5 foot of water. And then down this area you're getting back up to about 6 foot as it gets to the dam. When you start getting onto the other bank, the first peg on the other bank's 26, and from there 26, 27, 28, 29 and 30 are the 4 or 5 deepest pegs on the whole lake. You can find depths of 7 to 9 foot depending on how far you fish from the bank. It's like a sandstone bottom, so you haven't got a lot of silt down this end of the lake. Where the water comes in the early pegs 2 and 3, where it's very shallow, There's a lot of sediment and it's very soft. When you're plumbing up, you can feel your actual plummet going into the soft silt. But as you come away from there and get down to about pegs 5, it becomes just sandstone, rock hard bottom, lovely for plumbing up and lovely for fishing over the top of. And it's pretty much like that throughout the whole lake other than the early pegs. You're fishing for the same species right through the lake. It's predominantly rudd, tench, crucians and roach. There's a few nice koi carp in here as well, very rarely get caught, certainly not on the matches. A good run in here would be £1.5 pounds. We don't very rarely catch fish bigger than £1.5 pounds. Roach definitely up to £1.5 pounds. Crucians over £2. Alan Peach, one of the lads that helped build the lake many years ago, we fish for a trophy for him every year, whoever catches the largest tench, and that's generally one of a fish of about £4 each year. There are bigger ones in here, but with all the lilies and the underwater features, you hook a big fish on light tackle, it's difficult to get them out. But generally £3.5–4 £4, a good specimen tench from Stockbridge. And the beauty of this water is it fishes right the way through, even when it's very cold. Because we've got the deeper bank over there, you can come in December and January and still, on a mild sort of winter's day, still have a fantastic day's fishing. You still catch double figures of roach. So it's certainly a lovely venue. It lends itself well to pole fishing. But as you can see, all the lovely cages in the middle of the lake. A lot of the anglers like to fish their little wagglers up against that and catch rudd and roach up in the water. They don't really want to be in the deep water this time of the year. They want to be in the shallow pegs. Even the lads that have got the deep water, they'll be fishing 3 foot deep and 8 foot of water to catch the fish up in the air, as we say. The last match here was one in totally open water, a few foot from the bank. Even though the water's clear, you think you're not going to catch there, but you can still catch 30-pounder crucians right under the rod tip. Especially pleasure fishing, when you haven't got loads of anglers around the lake and you haven't got the pressure, it's easy to catch big bags of fish here, pleasure fishing.
This is Farnham Angling Society's premier carp fishery, Mill Lane. Situated just outside the town of Yaby on the Hampshire-Surrey border, it's a mature gravel pit of roughly 8 acres in size, featuring 2 islands with depths ranging from 13 foot at its deepest point to inches at its shallowest. Mill Lane contains 36 carp, with 7 known commons and mirrors breaking the magical 40-pound barrier at the right time of year, up to a top weight of 52 pound and 12 ounces. The rest of the stock being made up of 30 and 20 pound fish. Mill Lane also breeds large fish of other species, including Bream to 18 pound plus, Tench to 12 pound and above, Perch over 3 pound, as well as grass carp to 35 pound plus, and pike over and above 28 pound. The fishing on Mill Lane requires a dedicated and thoughtful approach and therefore suits the more experienced angler. Please note that there's a night ticket system operating on this water from 1st of April to 31st of October inclusive. You cannot fish between these dates unless you've booked a night ticket beforehand. The first swim you'll come to as you come in through the gate, just to the left here, is swim number 1. You've got an average depth of around 8 feet. As you look up to the left, you'll see a nice, quiet, undisturbed margin there with several overhanging bushes and trees. Next up is swim number 2. Looking out from this swim, you've got the long island to the left there, the largest island, which links up with another island off to the right there, via a gravel bar of sorts. Looking out for number 3, you've got around 10 feet close in. You'll pick up at a plateau around 40 to 50 yards range with 5 to 6 feet of water on top of it. This then deepens off and comes up once again a little bit shallower as you approach the feature which joins the two islands up. As with the two swims to the left, number 5 has got a large gravel feature with quite a distance out in front, with an average depth of around 8 feet across the rest of the swim's water. Making your way further up the bank, you've got swim number 6 and number 7. You've got a large expanse of open water out in front of 6, slightly deeper close in, but shallowing up slightly the further out you go. Number 7 fishes out to the end of the reed-fringed island. You pick up a couple of features off the point of it there. Once again, mostly average depth of 8 feet. In swim number 8, the grassy area, you've got around 5 to 6 feet of water up to the left there, with a good amount of weed out in front. In number 11, you've got quite a bit of shallow water there moving up to the left-hand side, quite close in. Alternatively, on the right-hand side of the swim, you've got several large overhanging willows with a good depth of water underneath in which the fish can find sanctuary. Number 12 with a sequence swim, looks out into a quiet bay. To the left here, you've got quite a large overhanging willow, got a good depth of water right on the outer branches there. Number 13, the island margin features a depth of 4 to 5 feet, down to about 6 foot in places. Pegs number 14 and number 15 are actually in the bay. Each features nice, quiet marginal areas, as well as a good depth of water out in front, down to about 10 foot in places. This is number 16, which looks out at a reed-fringed island. You've got a good long clear strip of water, about 10 yards short of it. Once again, in this swim, you've got an average depth of around 8 feet, and a nice little clear area just off to the right there, about 30 yards out. Moving on, number 18 fishes out to this side of the main feature. You've got a really large weed bed which provides cover just out to the left here, as well as a clear strip straight out at about 30 yards range. Number 19, you've got an average depth of around 8 foot of water. You've got an island just off to the right there, and also a deep silty gully between the island and this bank, just off to the right with depths down to around 10 feet. 20 and 21 both fish out to this margin of the big island. There's a decent depth of water underneath the overhang there, with a deep channel down to about 10 foot in between. Looking out from number 23, you've got about 10 to 12 foot depth of water. You've got a nice long undisturbed margin up to the right, with a notable snag bush with about 6 foot of water right next to it. Swim numbers 24 and 25 are on the bottom bank on the smaller side of the fishery. You've got around 10 to 12 feet out in front. 24, you've got a lovely snag bush just to the left there. Number 26, you pick up weed beds out in front, as well as a nice gently sloping gravel margin up to the right here. The last two swims that you'll come to along that bank are the reed swims. Both fish out to the same area of water. You've got an average depth of around 8 feet, with the cottage bay off to the right there. Carrying on round the lake, you're going to come to swim number 31, right in the cottage's bay. Up to the left there, you've got a nice gravelly margin of around 2.5 feet. This slopes off quite quickly into about 6 foot of water, 5 foot off the bush. Next up is the cottage's swim. Out in front of this one, you've got between 7 and 8 feet average depth. A little bit further out, gets deeper. You've got the odd gravel patch here and there in amongst weed. This is number 35, the first swim that you come to along the point. Again, a lovely undisturbed marginal area up to the left there, featuring a couple of large overhangs which provide sanctuary for the fish. Moving further up the point, you've got pegs 36 and 37. You've got around 7 to 8 foot depth of water across these swims, getting a little bit deeper the further out you go. You find number 38 on the end of the point. Got an average depth of around 8 feet. The closer you get to the island, the shallower it gets. Swim number 40 on the right hand side of the point fishes out to the right hand side of the big island. It's quite shallow underneath the overhangs there, but deepens off quite quickly. On the right hand side of the point, you'll find swims number 41 and 42. Between the two swims you'll find a nice overhanging snag bush. Looking up to the right of swim number 42, you've got a nice quiet margin featuring reeds and several overhangs of marginal trees. This is a nursery lake on Farnham Angling Society's Yates complex. Situated on Sandhurst Road, just outside Yates in Hampshire, it's a gravel pit of around 7.5 acres in size, featuring a massive island, large and small, channels, gravel bars and snags. Another one of Farnham Angling Society's prestigious new acquisitions, the fishery features an average depth of 4 feet, with shallow spots only inches in depth, right down to holes 10 feet deep. You've got about 100 carp present in the nursery. The stock roughly split 2/3 commons and the rest mirrors of various strains, up to a top weight of 36 plus for both commons and mirrors, with a good amount of 20 pound and 30 pound fish present too, alongside specimen Bream and Tench and good numbers of perch and roach too. The lakes remain somewhat of an unknown quantity in the past, but still holds a few surprises for those wishing to put in the effort. Walking across the bridge over the River Blackwater and turning right, make your way up the path until you reach the corner of the Point Bay on the Match Lake. Turning right up the path and making your way up to the river bank of the nursery lake, the first swim you'll come to is the duck boards. This one features quite a large expanse of open water in front, all around 4 foot deep, while it shallows up slightly in the margins. You can see 2 islands off to the right there with a gravel area in the channel in between. The next swim you come to is the Apple Tree Swim. This one's got several dot islands out in front with gravel seams in between joining up across the swim. It's around 4 foot in depth with a slightly deeper channel beyond the nearest islands. Next up is the one known as the Left Hand Open, which features several islands to the left with another row of islands out in front. You've got gravel seams continuing out across the swim with a depth of around 5 feet further out and 4 foot closer in. The open swim next door has also got a variety of depths from 3 feet, 20 yards out, picking up 5s and 6s further out right down to a 10 foot deep hole. Halfway out's always been a good producing area due to the large gravel feature running from left to right across the swim, which will pick up with a marker flow. Next is the Oak Swim, several dot islands off to the right and in front, with shallow gravel running in between them amongst an average depth of 4 feet. The area of channels are a mass of snaggy islands which are usually not fished for fish welfare reasons. Carrying on round the lake, the next swim you'll come to is the Bay Swim, a nice quiet spot where fish can be seen sunning themselves in the warmer months. Next up is the Boards. It's got a massive islands off to the left there and a large sunken island coming off the right hand side of the small dot island out in front. We've got a depth of around 2 feet on top of this sunken island and then 4 feet around there. A little bit shallower in the margins too in this one. To the right of that swim you'll find the Pipe Swim with deep water close in to the right down to around 8 or 9 feet. got another shallower sunken island coming off to the right hand side of the two snag bushes to the left there. The sunken island's about the same size as the one next door, but just a little bit further out. You'll then come to the gap swim, which is a good winter swim as it goes. Again, very close in, you've got 8 or 9 feet. You've also got a gravel feature off to the left there, as well as an inflow stream coming from the neighbouring fishery. Moving round onto the newly opened island swim with deep water close in to the left, gravelly margins and a nice view through the middle of the fishery. You've got gravel seams coming up the lake towards the swim at various intervals. Carrying on up the bank between the nursery and the copse, you'll see the lawn swim on the left. This swim you've got around 5 to 6 feet average depth, with a nice margin up to the right and several islands out in front with shallower margins surrounding them. Be warned that there's a fair amount of subsurface structure around these islands, all over the lake in fact, so as with the rest of the fishery, strong tackle is advised. The double's the next one you'll find coming along the bank separating the matching nursery lake, with an average depth of 4 to 5 feet across the open water which features out in front of the swim, with a deeper area close in to the left and right. In the diving board you've got the margins around 4 to 5 feet deep, shallowing up as they get closer to the islands. You've got a large sunken gravel area off to the left there, just off that little dot island, it's about 2 to 3 feet deep on top of that, and gently sloping off into deeper water. After this one you've got the crossroads, again depth 4 to 5 feet, with a silty area off to the right there, around 40 yards out, shallowing up again close to the islands. The first nursery swim offers a good section of open water to the right with a depth of 4 feet pretty much all over the swim. It's got silty channels between the islands to the left. Last but not least, you've got a swim known as the Brambles. Once again 4 foot across the swim with a lovely quiet reed fringed bay just off to the right. This is a match lake on the world famous Yateley East complex situated on the Sandhurst Road just outside Yateley on the Hampshire-Surrey border. One of the newest additions to Farnham Angling Society's portfolio of fisheries, it's a mature gravel pit of roughly 14 acres in size, featuring 40 swims, with depths ranging from inches in places to around 11 feet at its deepest point. The Match Lake offers a specimen and pleasure angler alike a wealth of fishing opportunities, with 3 islands, several bays, as well as long sections of quiet marginal area, weed beds, silty areas and gravel seams. There's a head of around 250 carp present in the match. 14 of the prestigious Yateley originals still remain, with the rest of the stock being made up of more recent introductions of mixed strains of carp by the previous owners of the fishery. 2 specimens are known to have broken the 40-pound barrier in the past, alongside a great backup stock of 30-pound, 20-pound and double-figure fish. There's also good numbers of whales catfish present, up to a top weight of mid £50 plus, as well as specimen Bream, Tench and Perch. As you come through the gate off the Sandhurst Road, you'll see the newly improved car park with ample safe and secure parking spaces for your vehicle. Walking up to the top left-hand corner of the car park, onto the bridge over the River Blackwater, you'll see the fishery board in front of you, which will hopefully help you get your bearings. Turning left up into the bay, the first swim you'll come across is the Lazy Man's. As with the rest of the fishery, the depth in front of this one is around 6 to 7 feet, with a mainly silty bottom with the odd gravel patch here and there. Next up is Common Corner, which has got a nice quiet margin up to the left where fish can often be seen browsing for food. Moving on, the next swim you'll come to is the Old Lazy Man's. Looking out from the swim, you'll see several large willows up to the left, with a shallow gravelly margin underneath, where you'll often find fish in the warm months. Carrying on up the path, the next swim you'll come to is the Stumps. Average depth once again 6 or 7 feet, with a gravel seam to the left around 2 rod lengths out. The Reeds also features gravel seams amongst the mainly silty bottom, one close in and another around halfway. They're not gravel bars as such, more like slight rises off the bottom. This is a mangrove swim which looks out onto a section of bank on which no fishing is allowed and therefore holds resident fish for most of the year, as well as looking out onto the entrance of the jungle, which is a sanctuary for the fish and therefore out of bounds. The split beach looks out onto the Long Island, which bisects the lake and has several large snag bushes with a good depth of water underneath. The Irks has got a lovely set of pads close in and features a silty channel between the bank and the left-hand tip of the island, which has a depth of around 4.5 feet underneath, sloping off quite quickly into deeper water. The Crack is the first of the open water swims, predominantly silty, with a couple of gravel seams running left and right, one at about 30 yards and another around halfway out. These gravel seams continue in front of the first and third middle of the road, in which you'll also find several large weed beds with channels in between which provide good fish interception points. Never neglect the bottom of the marginal slope either. The beach has got the second island directly in front of it, with a slightly shallower gravel area running off the right hand point of it. Moving up the lake to the NF or No Fish Swim, which has a second island in front and a third island off to the left. Whacking out a marker, you'll pick up a deeper channel between the two, down to about 9 or 10 feet. You've also got a gravel area running off the right-hand tip of the left-hand island. The third island swim and right-hand gravelly swim both fish out to the left-hand island. You've got around 6 to 7 foot depth of water between these swims and the island, with several overhanging bushes with a good depth of water underneath. Next up is the left-hand gravelly, which is situated at the head of the bottom bay. Several large weed beds feature in the front of this swim, which offer whole fish as well as an undisturbed margin up to the left. It's quite shallow underneath the overhangs, but slopes off quite quickly into deeper water. The garlic fishes out to the middle of the bay. You've got several large weed beds out in front, with a maximum depth of 8 feet, and around 5 foot of water with a gravelly margin on the edge of the overhangs to the left and to the right. Coming down into the bottom bay, you've got a lovely margin to the left, which is a great fish holding area, especially with a big wind, as well as a good depth of water underneath the rod tips. Carrying on round, you come to the high swim on the Cops Lake bank. Fish can quite often be seen moving very close to this bank, so never be afraid to drop one in close. The 48 fishes out to the head of the bay. Average depth around 6 feet, with a gravel seam running around 30 yards out. The 48 has got a quiet margin to the left and right, where you'll quite often find fish browsing. The right-hand party swim looks out onto the third island with a mainly silty bottom and several weed beds. The island has a decent depth of water right underneath the overhang, so a bait right up tight against it is always in with a shout. The The Pike swim's got the third island out in front also, with a gravel area in about 8 foot of water just shy off the left hand side of it. You'll pick up deeper water between the two islands as well as large weedy areas off to the left. Moving on, you'll come to Nigel's swim, which fishes out to the deep silty channel between the islands. This swim can be extremely weedy in the warmer months, so as with the rest of the fishery, strong tackle is advised. Next up's a small gap where fish can quite often be seen feeding close in amongst the weed, followed by the gate swim, which is a nice gravelly area quite close in just up to the left. Depth once again is about 6 or 7 foot, with a long section of overhanging trees and bushes to the left too. The dugout's got a large weedy area out in front, so preparation with a weed rake is quite often required in the warmer months to enable the anglers to create channels and clear spots and safely land any hooked fish. In the Gulf tees you'll find an island just to the left with several overhanging bushes under which a bait can be presented on clean gravel, with around 8 to 9 foot depth of water between the swim and the island with a silty bottom. The match swim has got the left hand side of the same island out in front. You'll pick up a gravel area coming off the left hand point of it, as well as depths down to about 10 feet between the bank and the island. Third canopy swim fishes out to the point of the long island which runs through the middle of the lake. The second canopy fishes out to the middle of the island with depths down to around 10 foot in places. The canopy swim fishes out to the other end of the island with a silty channel between the swim and the island margin. The next swim you'll come to is the Point Bay, featuring an extremely long section of quiet margin out in front and to the right, where you'll quite often find fish feeding. The point swim looks out onto the point of the long island, with a deep area about 1 rod length short of it, down to about 11 foot, a great winter area. You'll also find another deep spot close in to the right. The left-hand point swim you'll pick up mostly silt with a couple of gravel seams which can be located with careful markering, one about halfway, another one closer in. The right-hand Berkshire swim offers a cracking view up the lake with a nice margin up to the right. The left-hand Berkshire has got a set of lily pads close in to the right, as well as a clean gravel area close in to the left, which provides a good interception point for fish moving in and out of jungle, an area which is out of bounds. Finally, you'll come to the bum snag swim with a mainly silty 6 to 7 foot depth of water with gravel seams running left to right, one closer in, one around halfway. This swim has also got a snag bush just off to the right which can be a great producing spot.
This is Farnham Angling Society's teaching. It's a Carp Academy we call the Stepping Stone to Success. Just designed to pass on some basic information and basic knowledge to some of our members, just to help them get started and improve their angling. They're going to start with a casting tuition, which takes place first thing. There's 3 different types of casting. They'll be feeding the lead down, so that they can actually, when they fish these weedy waters, instead of coming down and putting rigs out and not being sure whether or not they're fishing, they'll actually know that they've got a drop and their bait's presented. There you go.
That's clean gravel. I don't know what the rod's done, but I imagine it stops a quick rod with a short, sharp shot.
They'll be learning casting accuracy because we have a target that they cast into, which we'll give a prize for, and then they'll also be doing spomming. There you go, bring them up. guys on hand will be tying rigs for them, showing them fish care from the moment it's landed. Those are the key things. Anything else they take away from the guys that help him. We've got some really knowledgeable anglers here. John McAllister, Nigel Sharp, Dave Benton, just to name a few. The experience around the lake is massive.
In the morning, the worst thing is winding in, thinking, oh, I've got a load of weed on there, I wonder if that won't fishing all night. You just need to know that it's correct. My action will be cast, rod forward, trap the line. When the lead splashes, I'm going to lift the rod up, and that will slow the lead down, going through the water.
We're so grateful that the guys take their time and turn up at these events. And the anglers, the knowledge that they learn is the equivalent of spending years on the bank. We've been supported with cost price on the boilies and the particle. We had 210 kilo of particle, which came in at cost money from Raisby Baits. And also we got some pop-ups from Kraken Baits. Yankee Angling have been kind enough to give out gift bags to the guys. X-Baits also donated a kilo of boilies per angler, so a big thank you to them. Farnham Angling Society have funded the whole event, and they've taken the cost on board themselves just to help back and put something back to the members. I think it's important, that we encourage these guys and that we just show them the right way to behave on the bank, as well as improving their fishing, because at the end of the day it's all about them catching more fish. That's what we're trying to feed back to them now doing this.